When you're feeling stressed or irrationally furious that your opponents keep countering your spells, it can feel like everything's out of control. Your heart's racing, your shuffle's falling apart. But don't worry, it's completely normal. You're a planeswalker. Your body is hardwired to resolve even the most complicated of stack resolutions. When emotions run high, there are tools to help you refocus. They're known as tap. Threaten. Feel the heat. Assert control. 1 or 2 pointed comments should do it. Attack. Your playgroup already thinks you're a monster. They're right, of course. Pulverize. Let your anger melt away, as their life totals do the same. Peace. Breathe in. Look around. You are calm. You are powerful. And you're about to build a Fire Lord Azula deck, just like this one. The thing is, therapy is expensive, even when you're just smashing your opponent's faces in, and I get that. So I built this entire deck to cost less than a single booster pack. That's right, 100 cards for under €7. Now, I might be cheating a little bit. I didn't include Azula's cost or the cost of basic lands, but you can probably pick a few of those up at your LGS, and I promise you'll pull her as your pre-release promo. How does that sound? Anyway, the whole deck costs less than the sleeves would cost that you're going to put it in, so what's not to love? But if you are feeling a bit more fiery and you've got an extra €100 burning a hole in your pocket, well, I built a deluxe version for you as well, which is at the end of this video, so stick around. In the meantime, let's look at our commander. It's Azula. She's a 4/4 human noble in Grixis colors who's looking pretty sharp. She's got Firebending too, which means that whenever she attacks, you'll generate 2 red mana that you can spend during combat. But remember, mana empties as phases end, so if you don't use it right then and there, it's gone faster than a mono-blue player's excuses for countering your commander. And as if by divine irony, Azula's second ability reads, whenever you cast a spell while she's attacking, copy that spell. Wow, it's almost like they designed the card to work with itself. So our game plan's pretty simple. Swing with Azula, sling a bunch of spells during combat, and watch the fireworks go off. She's already dealing a fair bit of damage on her own, but why don't we make that even more? I've filled this deck to the brim with red combat tricks that will turn her from a mildly unhinged older sister to a full-blown authoritarian fire goddess. Even something as simple as Infuriate goes from a 3/2 buff to a 6/4 once you factor in that free copy. And thanks to Firebending 2, you're getting all of that for free. That's why we're packing the list with cheap fiery instants like Sure Strike, Bloodlust, Titan Strength, Ancestor's Aid, Full Bore, Rise to the Challenge, Furious Bellow, Inordinate Rage, Run Amok, Nahiri's Stoneblades, Fist of the Anvil, Hearts on Fire, Brute Strength, and the Chase is on. Each one boosts her power way beyond what's reasonable, and any bonus effects such as scrying or in the case of the Chase is on, investigating, trigger twice. It's the kind of overkill that Azula would most definitely approve of. Bulk Up will push it even further, doubling our commander's power. Just make sure it's the last spell you play in the chain to make the most of it. The real fun though comes from modal spells. Make 4 creatures unblockable, or pump Azula by +6. Spells like Borrowed Hostility, Siege, Smash, and Invigorated Rampage all give you similarly chaotic flexibility, whether it's granting Azula First Strike, blowing up your opponent's soul rings, or giving her Trample, so she plows through blockers like they're Earth Kingdom extras. Of course, this is a lot of spells to be firing off mid-combat, and while we technically have access to Blue's unparalleled card draw because we're in Grixis, we want to make sure that we're doing most of the things that we can do during combat when we have access to Firebending 2. That means we're going to have to work with red mana. So while we don't have that blue card draw, we do have whatever red's going to give us. Fists of Flame is an all-star here, drawing 2 cards and giving Azula a temporary power boost that can hit +5 with the copy. And for card draw with a little bit of chaos baked in, Aleatory is a fun pick as it'll draw at the beginning of the next upkeep, and if you're lucky, you'll even get an extra little spark of damage to go with it. Faithless Salvaging lets us rummage and then has Rebound for a repeat next turn. Sazakap's Brew does the same, but rather than coming back for a round 2, also boosts Azula's power even further if we happen to be kind enough to throw a fish to a friend. We've got Thrill of Possibility, but I know in an ideal world we'd also be running something like Demand Answers, but since this deck's built on a shoestring budget, we're skipping that one for now. Instead, we're relying more on Impulse Draw, Cards like Blazing Crescendo or Haste Magic, the latter giving Azula a massive +6 to her power and letting us exile the top 2 cards of our library if cast mid-punch. This means that every combat step has the chance to snowball into more spells, more damage, and more fuel for the fire. Now that'll definitely kill one opponent, but what about the other 2? Well, that's why I've included Fling. You see, if you cast this post-damage, but before the combat step ends, you can sacrifice Azula and send that copied spell directly at both of your other 2 opponents. Now, it probably won't kill them, but it will set you up nicely for round 2. And seeing as they were sending all of these spells slinging off across the battlefield, it'll be rude not to include some classic pingers. Gutter Snipe, Firebrand Archer, and Erebor Flamesmith form our triple threat triad, pinging each opponent for each spell we cast. Backing them up are Atmosphere Surgeon and Battlesong Berserker. Both give Azula the evasion she needs to slip past blockers whenever she's ready to deliver that finishing blow. And finally, a real fan favourite of mine, Rutha Mercurial Artist. At instant speed, she can bounce herself back to your hand to copy any of your spells mid-combat, adding another layer of chaos to an already overloaded stack, the perfect mix of elegance and overkill. So far, we've only really talked about instants, but we do have another trick up our sleeve. It's Flash. You see, if you cast a Flash spell during combat with Azula on the board, it'll also get copied. And seeing as though we're going full glass cannon here, I've skipped out on the creatures, but there is something else that we have, and it's enchantments. With these Flash enchantments, they'll land on the board, be copied, and then stick around, giving Azula a permanent buff to her power and toughness. Aspect of Manticore and Fire Rim Form each give Azula a permanent +4 boost if they're cast mid-combat, while Spiteful Motives pushes that up to +6. And then there's Jeskai Runemark, giving +4/+4 and flying, because what's more terrifying than Azula charging at you on fire? Azula charging at you on fire from the sky. And last but not least, it's the lands for this ultra budget build. Now, I don't usually talk about lands unless they are specific to the build, but for this one, I thought I'd talk you through them anyway. We're running 23 basics, which at least have one major upside. They do all come in untapped. Beyond that, we've squeezed in the essentials that you'd expect for a 3-color deck. The Scry lands, Temple of Epiphany, Temple of Deceit, and Temple of Malice, plus the ever-reliable Path of Ancestry and Command Tower. But the MVP here? Rogue's Passage. It's the perfect in case of emergency break glass card, making Azula completely unblockable when you absolutely positively need someone eliminated. So there you have it, an entire Commander deck for less than the price of a collector booster, an overpriced cup of coffee, or the sleeves that you're going to put the deck in. But the problem is that sometimes running an ultra budget build will only get you L's at F&M. So if you found a couple of coins down the side of your sofa, then stick around because here are the upgrades that you'll need to turn this into a full-blown powerhouse. And the philosophy is still the same. We're looking to obliterate someone before they can even get their Muldrotha out of the command zone. But now we can do it with even more spells, even more damage, and even more chaos. Fire off a Pyretic Ritual or Desperate Ritual for free thanks to Azula's Firebending 2, and suddenly you've netted 6 red mana. Got one more red lying around, toss it into a Seething Song mid-combat, and you're working with 10 red mana to burn through, all before blockers are even declared. And remember Aleatory from the budget build? Well, that's our most expensive card in that list. Hi there, Modular Cocoon here, just to jump in to say that Aleatory is no longer the most expensive card in that list. It changes quite often just as Magic the Gathering card prices fluctuate, but it will always be below €1, below $1, something like that. So just keep that in mind. Some of the prices in this video may chop and change a little bit, but they will always be cheap as chips. And with that, I will leave you to go back to the build. At 32 cents. The thing is that a lot of these draft chaff red combat tricks just don't cost very much. But we do get access to some harder hitting stuff. And while you may have your favorite combat tricks for the build, sometimes it's nice to get a little bit of help, and that's where my secret weapon, Card Mystic, comes in. It's the Magic the Gathering search engine powered by AI models. By searching for 2 mana value red combat tricks, I'm given a whole list of excellent choices. Then, once I've found one that I love, I can hit the similar card button to find others just like it. Thanks again to Card Mystic for sponsoring this video, but let's get back to the deck. While the budget version had Bulk Up, Psychotic Fury and Unleash Fury join the fray to also double up Azula's power. Plus, Psychotic draws us a card too, so what's not to love? Great Train Heist is a fantastic new modal spell for us to add to the list, letting us do the whole thing again, but remember, you'll need to pay the spree cost a second time if you do end up wanting to copy it. However, Untimely Malfunction is our new top hitter modal, giving us a pseudo counterspell, artifact destruction, and a way to give Azula evasion all bundled into one. Speaking of interaction, we are in Grixis, and both an offer you can't refuse and snap slot in perfectly, disrupting our opponent's tempo and keeping us in the game. Our flash spells also got a serious upgrade. Silver Shroud costume dives in mid-combat to give Azula Shroud, and unblockable until end of turn. Just remember, if you cast it first, Shroud will stop you from targeting her with anything else, so plan your fireworks accordingly. Nowhere to Run offers solid removal, and with it our newly added kill spells can now hit any target, hexproof or ward be damned. And while we're talking about big upgrades, Dictate of the Twin Gods is a card I wish I could have squeezed into the budget build. When flashed in and copied, it causes our commander to deal quadruple damage. And finally, joining the fray is Twinning Staff, and while I doubt we'll ever need to pay the 7 mana to copy anything manually, it does mean that every spell cast mid-combat gets an extra copy thrown in. Perfect for those moments when you need to really reassure your opponents that frankly, they were never really players in the game. Now, where would Azula be without her daily agents? Our creature base has had a massive overhaul, and we've moved far beyond just a simple prototype. Nightscape Familiar keeps things efficient, reducing the cost of a large portion of our spells. Meanwhile, Stormkiln Artist, Urabrask, and Electro Assaulting Battery keep the engine roaring, generating mana for every spell we cast. Need that mana even faster? Just exile a Simian Spirit Guide from your hand for a free red boost. Ruther has been graduated from the roster, replaced by Jewelcaster Mage. And while Hullbreaker Horror may be a bit on the pricey side, showing up after the table's already in ruins, if you're into toying with your food, it's the perfect way to make sure nothing sticks around but Azula. We've even added more card draw with Archmage Emeritus, and if he's on the board before the lightning starts flying, you'll probably win the game on the spot, since every instant you cast or copy becomes another card in hand. But my personal favourite is Ashling Flame Dancer. This Modern Horizons 3 legend will have you drawing, discarding, pinging, and generating mana faster than you could ever believe. Just 2 spells cast mid-combat will complete her whole routine. And with that, we'll move on to the lands, which is inevitably the most expensive part of this deck. But remember, it's an investment, and you can use these lands in any other of your builds. Xander's Lounge is the only land in the list that enters tapped, ensuring Azula hits the ground hard and fast. But before you dive into the comments, I know that Dragonskull Summit, Sulphur Falls, Drowned Catacombs, and Starting Town all technically say enters tapped on the card, but keep reading and you'll see my favourite word, unless. Ensure that you're following the conditions and you'll have Azula on board turn 4 and swinging by turn 5 at the latest. Want to make sure that she hits the ground even sooner? Well, why don't you fire off a Pyretic Ritual or a Dark Ritual ahead of time to make sure that the coronation is ready for the Fire Lord's Ascension. And there you have it. Whether you go for the ultra budget build or the more expensive one, you're bound to have a great time. And personally, I love the budget build. I think it runs super smoothly and it's great for dual commander as well. If you enjoyed this deck, do hit like. If you've got any ideas for this deck or any others, please leave a comment. And if you really liked it, do hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.